niggas ain't saying, man, that nigga there, woo, woo, woo. And his brother go shoot at us. That nigga brother pull a gun out on Big U, nigga.
What if the last moments of a legend could still be unraveled? Imagine a quiet Sunday afternoon in Crenshaw, the sun beating down on a scene that should have been routine. Nipsey Hussle pulling into his Marathon clothing store for a quick run-through. Then, the unimaginable happened. New, never-before-seen footage has just surfaced, and it's already going viral. In this video, we dive into the raw, unfiltered seconds that capture Nipsey fighting for every breath, the chaotic rush to the hospital, and the chilling reality that he was still breathing even as tragedy unfolded. But that's not all. We bring fresh evidence to light, details that hint at who may have orchestrated the hit, including the connections between Eric Holder, Brian Nita Nicholson, and their shared street background. Stay with us as we break down the final moments, the untold fight, and the emerging clues that could rewrite history. This is the V5 of the story, and the truth is finally in the spotlight. On March 31, 2019, the city of Los Angeles witnessed a tragedy that rippled through every corner of the community. The day began like any other for Nipsey Hussle, the charismatic entrepreneur and rapper who had cultivated a reputation for generosity and resilience. He pulled up to the Marathon clothing store he owned in the heart of the Crenshaw district at about 3:07 p.m., heading inside to run a quick errand. He had no idea that the afternoon would soon become the last chapter of his story. Inside the store, Nipsey interacted with a small group of loyal employees and old friends, all of whom had grown up alongside him and watched his rise from the streets to a global brand. Among those people was Herman "Cowboy" Douglas, a longtime associate who had worked at the store and shared a deep bond with the artist. As Nipsey moved about, the atmosphere remained light and casual, punctuated only by the hum of conversations and the soft echo of his footsteps on the tiled floor. He paused in the doorway and glanced toward the parking lot, noticing a figure approaching from the opposite direction. Eric Holder Jr., the man who would soon become a name etched into headlines for an unforgivable act of betrayal. Eric Holder, a 27-year-old former employee of the Marathon shop, had become a friend to many in the area, but his relationship with Nipsey was far from intimate. The two men met in the parking lot for a conversation that would, in the span of mere minutes, ignite jealousy and spark a premeditated massacre. Holder approached the back of the building, a place that had been quiet and unassuming that morning, and asked if he could use Nipsey's office to talk. The question seemed innocent, but the context of their meeting was charged with an undercurrent that was hardly visible to the casual observer. Nipsey's tone in the conversation with Holder was one of caution. He had been watching Holder's rise and had felt a deep responsibility to guide him away from the dangers of the streets. He didn't speak with aggression. Instead, he offered advice, a protective gesture he would have done for any of his protégés. Yet, in that brief exchange, Holder's words cut sharp. He was a young man who had grown up in the same neighborhoods, who had been a figure in local circles, but his presence here was not meant to be confrontational. The dialogue that played out, captured by surveillance cameras and later replayed in court, shows a man who had just shared a brief moment of camaraderie before an explosive change occurred. The conversation, recorded on the Marathon shop security camera, lasted about 3 minutes. Nipsey Hussle listened and, with his signature calmness, responded to Holder's claims about perceived disrespect with a calm, almost paternal tone. He was trying to look out for the younger man like he would for a younger brother, offering guidance before Holder could fully understand the potential danger lurking in the city's shadows. The conversation, in the footage, was far from heated. It was almost a lull in the usual bustle of the day, but the calm was a stark contrast to the violence that erupted moments later. After the conversation, Holder returned to the parking lot. He had arrived with a weapon load that was both deliberate and deadly, a semi-automatic rifle tucked under his jacket and a revolver slung around his waist. The footage that had been released only days ago from the Marathon store's security system shows Holder's arrival in the parking lot, the opening of the camera's field of view, and the rapid exchange of the last words between him and Nipsey before the first burst of gunfire. Holder's first words, captured on the tape, were chillingly simple. "You're through." He said that line to Nipsey, and the rapper's response, "You got me," echoed back from a man who had known the stakes were high. This exchange, the last two words that would become a haunting testimony in the courtroom, highlighted a moment of betrayal that was as personal as it was public. Nipsey, in those 10 seconds, realized that the man who had shown him care would now take his life, and his eyes betrayed a fierce determination to survive. The gunfire that followed was sudden, brutal, and unforgiving. The semi-automatic rifle fired a barrage of bullets that struck Nipsey's chest, torso, and head.
He wanted to leave a bad deal that he'd got into with Big U's unique label.
So I signed him to it. It was signed to a 10-year production contract, which started in.
The revolver added another burst of fire that increased the severity of the injuries. The footage from the Marathon Store's security camera is unflinching. Nipsey's body twisted as he tried to find breathing space amid the chaotic shots. The camera captured the dust and the shrapnel that spiraled in the air. It was not a spontaneous reaction to a threat, but an execution that unfolded with precise timing. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, the street's collective heart sank. Sam Asghedom, Nipsey's younger brother, received a call that the news would soon be a headline. He drove down Sloan Avenue, ignoring traffic lights, a frantic urgency driving his hands on the wheel. He arrived at the scene with the weight of his brother's loss already settling upon his chest. When he found Nipsey's body spread in the parking lot, his eyes filled with raw grief. He pressed his chest, the same rhythm he had felt for months, onto his brother's chest, as the 911 operator advised him to do CPR. The sight of a brother kneeling over another in a cramped, dusty parking lot was a moment of tragedy that the city never expected, but which resonated with everyone who had watched the footage, as if a part of their own family had been torn away. Paramedics arrived quickly, but the injuries were severe. They inserted a tube into Nipsey's throat, set up an IV, and lifted him onto a stretcher. The sight of his head tilted to the side, a gaping wound in his back, was a stark reminder of the finality of that afternoon's violence. The doctor's notes confirmed that Nipsey was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m., a full 35 minutes after the first bullet struck his body. The official cause of death, gunshot wounds to the head and torso, was clear, yet the medical examiner added a poignant note. He fought for 35 minutes, a testament to a man who, despite the odds, held on to life for as long as he could. The footage that emerged in the days and weeks following the murder, especially the newly released surveillance from the Marathon Store, gave the community a deeper understanding of the brutality of that day. It was no longer a story about a celebrity losing his life. It became a narrative about a young man who trusted others and the betrayal that led to his death. The evidence was clear. Holder returned to the parking lot after the brief conversation and launched a premeditated attack that was not a spur-of-the-moment reaction to a threat, but a calculated decision to kill. The legal journey that followed was as fraught with tension as the day itself. Eric R. Holder Jr. faced a single count of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, and additional charges related to assault and the possession of firearms by a felon. The prosecution's case, built by Deputy District Attorney John McKinney, was a tapestry of video evidence and eyewitness testimony that left no room for doubt. The court's walls echoed with the testimonies of Brianita Nicholson, the woman who had driven Holder to and from the scene. Nicholson, granted immunity, stated that she had no idea of Holder's intentions until she heard the news, describing a moment when Holder said, "You're through," before opening fire. To which Nipsey replied, "You got me." These final words, recorded on video, framed the very instant when trust turned to betrayal. She also recalled a chilling post-shooting directive, "Drive before I slap you." The phrase, spoken as the two fled the scene, revealed an individual who was willing to threaten violence against anyone who did not comply with his escape plan. That statement, recorded by Nicholson's testimony, made the prosecution's argument that the murder was premeditated even stronger. It also showed a man who had the nerve to threaten a second individual for not following his order, a man who had thought through his escape strategy before leaving. Witnesses on the scene, like Herman Cowboy Douglas, described the conversation between Nipsey and Holder as seemingly calm. Douglas, who worked at the Marathon Store and had known the rapper for years, said that the tone was not aggressive. It was instead a caring gesture that one friend might make to another. The defense's argument that Holder was provoked by aggression was contradicted by these accounts. In the end, the courtroom was filled with testimonies that illustrated a toxic mix of jealousy, professional rivalry, and the lethal impact of perceived disrespect in a culture where trust could mean life or death. The case had been delayed multiple times, the first attorney withdrawing under threat, the court shutting down due to pandemic restrictions. These setbacks highlighted the intense emotions that the case evoked within the community, as well as the sheer importance of justice for Nipsey. The jury listened to the footage that showed a man walking in with a semi-automatic and a revolver, the gunfire, and the rapid escape. The evidence was undeniable. The story that unfolded was a testament to the destructive potential of envy and disrespect. During the closing statements, the judge underscored the gravity of the case. The death of Nipsey Hussle was not just a personal loss for his family, but a collective shock that reminded everyone that fame and success do not shield one from the dark side of street culture.
You actually knocked Nipsey Hussle out during their fight.
First time they first fall out, when they first got Nipsey signed, Nipsey come back, was a fallout. They went down, there was a fight, rumble happened. I believe Big U knocked Nipsey out. Blacc Sam comes out, fires 3.
The courtroom, bathed in the stark light of a legal battle, became a platform to reveal the hidden webs of relationships, motives, and circumstance that had led to a most unexpected betrayal. The footage that has just come to light in the public domain is a stark reminder of how an ordinary day can unravel into tragedy. The conversation between Nipsey Hussle and Eric Holder Jr. is now preserved as a piece of evidence that captures a man's attempt to protect a friend, and a moment when that attempt became the catalyst for a violent act. The footage from the Marathon store, the video of the gunfire, the footage of Holder's rapid departure, all these pieces paint a chilling portrait of premeditation and jealousy. The story continues to reverberate in the hearts of those who watched the newly released surveillance, in the testimonies of those who survived that day, and in the collective memory of a city that had never imagined seeing a brother's face fall to dust. Nipsey's legacy, however, lives on. He fought for a life. He left a legacy of love and guidance, and the new footage gives us a glimpse of how the world responded to his untimely death. The story serves as a cautionary tale for future generations, that success, no matter how great, is a fragile thing in a society that is not always kind. The footage reminds us of the price that can come with the simple words of trust, the last line spoken in an instant of betrayal. The footage of that day is now in the public domain, and it offers a sobering insight into the tragedy that unfolded in a city's quiet parking lot. The video that surfaced this morning, a raw, grainy snapshot of Nipsey Hussle's final moments, has already reshaped the conversation around his death. For a living legend whose presence was felt in every storefront, every community board, and every block party, seeing him on the ground like that feels like a punch in the gut. Yet it also forces us to revisit the full tapestry of events that culminated in that tragic day. The new footage not only confirms the official timeline, but also offers fresh angles that deepen our understanding of the motives, the personalities involved, and the wider reverberations felt by a community and a culture. When the footage first began to circulate, it was almost a quiet thing, an ordinary clip on a smartphone that somehow made its way into the hands of millions. But within hours, the clip had been shared across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, each platform amplifying the shock and the questions. It showed the battered, blood-stained body of Nipsey lying in the parking lot of the Marathon clothing store, his eyes closed in the stillness after a chaotic sequence that, according to the prosecution, lasted just a few minutes. The visual was stark. The contrast between the vibrant storefront, the bright sunlights, and the dark, grim scene below. For many viewers, the image felt like a jarring reminder of how quickly violence can interrupt the rhythm of life. This raw visual is the catalyst that pulls us back into the details of the case. In the weeks before the incident, the narrative was already saturated with speculation. Snitching was the trigger, rumors of an ongoing feud with a former business partner were floated, and conspiracy theories sprouted about the potential suppression of a Dr. Sebi documentary. But the new footage forces us to consider a deeper reality, that the trigger was a brief, heated argument that escalated into a murder that was already being planned. The video, when examined closely, aligns with the prosecution's narrative of Eric Holder Jr. jumping from a pre-planned state. Holder's behavior in the hours leading up to the shooting was, in many ways, predictable. Witnesses described him as jumping in a sense of taking a bold, calculated move. He was no longer an impulsive kid, but a man who had spent years living with the consequences of a street mentality. In a statement about the shooting, a key witness recounted that Holder had been jumping in the sense of being ready to act. This was not an impulsive act, but a culmination of a life lived in a context where snitching carried fatal weight. In the streets, the word snitch is a threat that can trigger violence. Holder, who was no stranger to the complexities of street culture, saw a former friend, a former entrepreneur, as a rival who could undermine his business and reputation. The decision to kill Nipsey was, according to the prosecution, not a random act, but a deliberate act carried out with intent. This new footage further clarifies the timeline, showing the precise moment when the altercation broke into violence. The footage also offers evidence that aligns with the prosecution's statement. The store security camera captured the entire sequence from an angle that was previously overlooked. When Holder stepped forward, the tension was palpable, the air thick with words that would soon become fatal. He was seen raising his hands, a symbol of his readiness to act, and then the lethal moment occurred. The number of shots fired was consistent with the evidence: 9 shots, 10 gunshot wounds, a single fatal wound.
But it's really over $20,000 nigga extortion fee to pay for protection. Yeah, Nip was being extorted too. He had to pay for protection. That's why they got that video of him.
Holder's weapon was a 9mm handgun, and it was the same weapon used in the fatal shots. The footage shows how the victim's body lay on the asphalt. The detail is chilling. His hands were open, his face blank. His last moments were captured in a way that turned the raw footage into a haunting visual. For many, it felt like a direct view into the brutality that is often described only in court transcripts. And news reports, the footage's viral spread is, therefore, not only a technical phenomenon, it is a manifestation of how the public grapples with the loss of a beloved figure and the way a single traumatic moment. The courtroom proceedings, which were already fraught with drama, were impacted significantly by the new footage. The judge had ruled that the footage would be admissible, thereby forcing the jury to confront the real, visceral reality of what had happened. The prosecution had built a case on a timeline that was based on the footage. The defense attempted to undermine that narrative, arguing that the footage was out of context and could be misinterpreted. The judge's ruling, however, was based on the principle that the footage was relevant, authentic, and necessary to establish intent. The judge emphasized that it did not change the verdict, only clarified the manner of the event. Holder's conviction for first-degree murder, therefore, was reinforced by this concrete visual evidence, sealing the outcome. Holder's incarceration has become a public spectacle in itself. Reports from the prison transport bus, where inmates openly spat and urinated on him, illustrate the sheer hatred he faces. The narrative that he was a target in prison mirrors the reality that a murderer of a community figure can be perceived as a threat to everyone connected with that figure. For an artist whose music touched so many, the death of Nipsey Hussle reverberated worldwide. And the prisoner is no longer a figure of local notoriety, but a target on a national, even global scale. In the cell, a razor attack resulted in staples in his head, a stark reminder that the criminal justice system must balance the rights of the accused with the safety of all inmates. This also underscores the broader point that the consequences of killing a beloved artist extend far beyond the immediate neighborhood. Legal controversies followed the conviction. The decision to grant immunity to a key accomplice, Breonnetta Nicholson, drew criticism from community activists who saw it as a sign of preferential treatment. Their point was clear. If someone helps facilitate a murder, they should be held accountable. Yet the prosecution argued that Nicholson's cooperation had helped secure vital evidence, a trade-off that the court deemed acceptable. In the same vein, the arrest of Cary Lethan, one of the shooting's victims, for allegedly violating parole by associating with Nipsey, seemed a contradiction. Lethan had been arrested because of an alleged association with Nipsey, who was known for his community work but also had ties to gangs. The arrest raised the question: was law enforcement differentiating between the street persona and the community persona of the victim? This tension was an echo of the broader theme that the murder is a multifaceted event, with legal implications that ripple across the city. The new footage also reignited old conspiracy theories. One of the most persistent rumors tied Nipsey's death to a documentary about Dr. Sebi. The idea that the government or pharmaceutical companies might have suppressed information about a herbalist cures to protect profits seemed plausible to some. The lack of evidence only fed the sense that a powerful entity had silenced a Black entrepreneur who might have offered alternative health solutions. This theory taps into a long historical narrative of mistrust within the African American community. For many, the new footage was a catalyst that forced them to confront their own sense of grief and suspicion. It became a part of the way they processed the trauma when the official explanation seemed incomplete. The Marathon clothing store that had become the crime scene has since reopened in a new location, transformed into a memorial. Yet the memory of that day lingers. The new footage, which has become part of the public record, is more than just a visual. It is a symbol of how a single moment can shatter a life that had touched millions. The public's reaction, from outrage to empathy, has created a complex emotional landscape.
Some see it as an opportunity to keep Nipsey's legacy alive, while others feel that the violence that ensued after his death undermines the very community work he championed. In a way, the new footage serves as a double-edged sword. On one side, it affirms the narrative of a planned, intentional murder, giving closure to a case that was already decided in court. On the other side, it raises questions about why a community leader who had invested in his neighborhood, who had built a business empire and engaged in philanthropy, became a target for a single altercation about snitching. That question is difficult to answer within a single narrative. It is a question that will keep conversations alive for years to come.